Hey folks, welcome to episode 7 of the Must Mate podcast. Jack here. So sorry for the long break after the Sinistar episode. I won't go into the real details of why it's taken me so long to get back to doing the podcast. I love doing it, but you know, with COVID, being at home, being out the studio, all the mental pressures that come with all of that stuff, I just needed to take a little break. So I'm back. And hello. It was much needed, and to be honest, I had to do it so I could get back into the studio and find some creative momentum for myself. So I'm glad I did, but I apologise for people who were sort of waiting on the next episode, and I've had lots of messages about it. So thank you so much for all of those messages, and I'm hoping you won't have to wait too long, because my plan for this year is to really get stuck into it. I've got loads of really exciting guests lined up, and I've done loads of rehashing of the research and reading and ideas and all that stuff that comes with the topic. All of the things that have been discussed in previous episodes, I've been struggling with for the last 6 months. That's why there's been none of these. So there'll be more coming soon. So keep it locked in. First of all, for 2021 is I've readdressed the Patreon or patron page for those of you who've been in contact about supporting and just thinking about sort of tiers and benefits and how people can get involved with the conversation themselves. So what I've done is I've set it up with various tiers, and if you get value from these podcasts and they're helping you with your own creative endeavors and you want to support and enable me to be able to do more of these and more podcasts and more creative content, you can head over and check out the benefits and check out the tiers. I've kept it really simple. Just means you can have early access to the recording. We can chat about the topic within the patron page. You can get opportunities to ask your questions of each guest. So I'll try and let patrons know ahead of time who I'll be talking to, and you can submit your questions. There's lots of things that we can do, really. But it'd be great if you could head over there and support, or just share this podcast, like and subscribe on all the platforms. That's the bit of sell at the beginning. So the guest for this episode, I've managed to get Kasra from Critical Music to come on and have a chat. I've been wanting to have Kasra on for a while, and I've known him for many, many years, so it's been great to get him on and have a long chat. It's actually longest episode I've done so far. Kasra runs Critical Music. He's ran that label for a long time, and we did releases with him as Spectrasol, and I've just done a release with him as Workforce, and it was interesting to chat with him because he obviously has a different perspective. He runs the label, and he ran the label first and foremost before he became a producer, so he talked about his transition from solely running a label into being a musician in his own right. We talk about things that he didn't understand when he didn't have his own creative project that he does now, that he makes his own music. We talk a bit about COVID and about his responsibility to his artists and to the fans of the label, how he deals with creative personalities and what he sees in them now that he didn't see before. And we have a really wide-ranging chat about his creative struggles and his creative patterns, and let's get into it. Yo, Kaz, how's it going?
Hello, mate. I'm good. You?
Yeah, not bad. What's happening?
Cool. What is happening? It's very rainy up in Shropshire. I'm still at the in-laws.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, which is where we spent pretty much since March.
Oh, wow. You've not been in London at all?
No, we have. We went back. So we came here in March for a few weeks, and we went back in May for a bit to London. And we came back again. Then we had our baby in August, so sort of late June, early July, we went back for a few weeks just to kind of get the house ready. Then we came back, then we went back, then we came back. So, but it's also a bit of a struggle with us as well, because we want to make sure that we're balancing out our normal life, because this isn't our normal life. We're in a bubble here.
Yeah.
And it's very nice, but it's not our life, you know. And the more time you spend living like this, the more it's going to be harder to get back into reality.
Yeah. I'm wondering how the world will look when we get back to things in terms of like actual space, because there's loads of people who I know who live in London who are now who were saying, "Oh, I'm settled here for good," who are now being like, "Well, actually, I kind of don't really need to be here." And I'm a little bit not the reverse, but like I've been watching. You know, I'm in Brighton, but I live sort of in Worthing, which is like 10 miles west, and it's very quiet there. And sometimes that's great, but sometimes by my nature, I'm desperate for like a bit more excitement and hustle bustle,
stimulation.
Sort of yeah. I mean, I was watching this thing. I took a day off yesterday, and I was watching this thing on Netflix called "Pretend It's a City." Have you seen that?
No.
I thought it was excellent. So it's directed by Scorsese, and it's basically interviewing this woman who's in her 70s, who's a writer and like a comedian called Fran Lebowitz, and she's like a famous New Yorker, and it's like a kind of complaint, a long 7-episode complaint about all the bad things about New York, but also a really romantic look at New York, and it just got me thinking yesterday. It's excellent. I can recommend it to anybody who's fancies it, that sort of thing. It's just sort of like very funny, very, very sort of whimsical. There's some amazing footage in there of Marvin Gaye rehearsing. I don't know I think the relevance of that was the music scene in New York in the 70s, but it's just really cool. I'd advise it. I mean, I love stuff like that for ideas. And
yeah, I think the thing about cities is like, I feel kind of indifferent about London at the moment. Some of my friends are particularly in the same boat. You look at things with different eyes when you have a child. I mean, I'm very sort of pro the idea of Milo growing up in a city where he will be faced with diversity and, all the wonderful different things that a city brings. But then there's also the other side of, I don't want him to get knifed in the face at the age of 8 because someone wants to sell him crack. So it's like, but we have friends of ours who moved out of London, but make sure their kids come to London at least a couple of times a month. But I just think the thing about cities that's amazing is that they have an energy. And I don't think you get an energy in cities that don't, in areas that aren't cities, because there just isn't that kinetic feel to them. And London is horrible. It's overcrowded. It's overpriced. It stinks. It's dirty, and it's falling apart at the seams. But it's also full of incredible energy and incredible culture and food and people. And the fact that it is a nightmare to kind of negotiate makes it sometimes quite enjoyable. It takes an hour to get everywhere, even to go and see a mate who's 2 minutes down the road sometimes. But it's something I miss. I do really miss.
I think with what's going on, it's easier to say, "Oh, I don't need London." But actually, I think if things got back to a normality there is a certain magic about it. And when I lived there for like 7 odd years, and I rarely went into the centre of London. Rarely. I mainly stayed sort of where I lived, but it was the fact that you could if you wanted to. But that said, now that I'm back on the coast, it takes me 50 minutes to get to Victoria, and you're pretty much amongst it from there if you want to go out. So it's like you don't know it's one of those you don't know what you've got till it's gone sort of things. But actually, you romanticize about living in London when actually like the reasons I left are still solid. Like. And there's so much I wouldn't have been able to do if I hadn't left London, basically.
It's funny. It's like you think about, like, I wouldn't be able to see my mates. And then you talk to your mates, it's like, well, actually, I see you once every 6 weeks. Or it's like, but I can't go to that gig. It's like every time you buy a ticket to a gig, you can't be bothered to go. Or like something happens, or you get stuck in traffic, or or like I mean, my life's completely different because I have a child, so it's completely different. But I know one thing that me and my wife really miss is like we'd spend a lot of time and money going to restaurants. That sort of thing.
100%.
And even though Kay's 10 years younger than me, we kind of like you just get to a point where you're not going out and getting messed up every week or whatever. You just don't do it. So that's the thing we miss, and those kind of little cultural things that. The thing is, it's quite extreme here in that we are in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
pretty much. I mean, there's Shrewsbury's sort of half an hour down the road, but there's not the nearest city's Manchester, and that's an hour and a half. So, but yeah. Anyway,
I didn't realise you were so far away from London. That's mad. Shrewsbury way.
Yeah, it's 3.5 hours in the car to get here.
Blimey. Okay.
Yeah, it's a long old way. That's one of the reasons we don't come back that often, because it's a real ball ache.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think this is quite an interesting place to start on the topic then, because all of this stuff sort of blends in quite nicely, because it's and I mean, I've not done an actual Must Make podcast since July, but I've obviously done a couple of like chats with people to promote other records. With with Charlie and Lawrence and Ed, Tim Reaper, and they were less focused chats in terms of subject matter. But for this, it's been a long break because I felt knackered with the idea, and also got back into the studio in July time. So I just sort of got running with it. So I spent all day yesterday watching stuff to give me ideas, and rehashing and rereading a lot of my sort of extensive notes that I've got for the podcast, and also just thinking about specific stuff to talk about with you. But the obvious place to start, which is quite interesting, I think, is like how you've observed COVID affecting not like creative industries, but I guess people's access to ideas and people's ability to be creative at the moment, and whether you as a creative, but also as a curator of creatives on your record label, whether you've seen a direct sort of impact, or a slowing, or a hastening, or what evolutions you've seen over the course of the last 10 months or so, I guess.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think if I take it from two angles, I think if I take it from as a label owner and someone who collaborates in that way with artists, I think I've seen sort of extremes, in as much that some people have used the time to really hunker down and work maybe more than they ever have done on their craft, and maybe gone off to explore new ways of working, and felt that this is a time they'll never maybe have again. And whether that's resulted in actual tangible results or not, it's just a process that they felt they really had to go through. And then the other example was that some people have just found themselves completely devoid of inspiration and not wanted to do anything. And as a label owner, you have to really respect both. And both creates their own sets of challenges, in that, with some people, they're just writing so much music and they're like, I want to get all this out. And you're like, well, we don't have the space in the schedule necessarily to release all this music. And they're like, well, I don't want to sit on it all for another year because I'm writing so much. And the other side of it is that you have people whose careers were maybe really starting to flourish, and they've just ground to a halt, not through any fault of their own. Obviously, creativity isn't a tap you turn on and off, but you try and encourage them, but it just isn't there in them, because they just don't feel it for whatever reason. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Some people just, I don't know about you, Jack, but I would always feel, regardless of how tired I was after maybe a 2-3 show weekend coming back on a Sunday afternoon, I would always feel the most inspired to make music on that Sunday evening. Not that I would actually necessarily sit down and open my laptop and write anything, but I would always think, I love this. Particularly if I'd had a good weekend of shows, obviously if I had a couple of stinkers, then you might not feel the same way. But I was lucky enough to, most of the time, it would be like surrounded by people whose music you love, playing the music you love, hearing it the way it's meant to be heard. You'd feel like, this is just the best thing. I just can't wait to finish that tune that I was working on, or tweak the mix on the tune that I played at the weekend that went down well but could be better, those kind of things.
It can go both ways, can't it, with those? Because I think I didn't realise I was missing shows until before, when I had a really, really long gap, and then I played like a sit-down show in Brighton, and I hired one of those little pirate studio things for a couple of hours, and I got in there and was literally just having a mix, but it was just like all this energy that I wouldn't normally have, and I never really practice at home. But you realise actually that lack of release in terms of an energy, and in terms of like testing material and being in a room full of people and allowing that sort of energy to tap off is one thing. But also, like you said, It's the reaction to that good experience when you come back that gives you more ideas, and it's like a relationship between those two things that everyone's been lacking. I think there's been certain times when I've really enjoyed waking up super fresh on a Monday without having done loads of gigs.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think that's
It's weird. I think by nature, like, people that write music are all very different. There's lots of things that connect those people together, but there's lots of things that make them different. So there's lots of people I've seen who've just been able to just like carry on and just make hay.
But for some people, their life is kind of very similar to what it was. If you're the kind of artist who's very, let's put it a certain way, like very select about the shows they did. If you only did a couple of shows a month and you spent most of the week in the studio and you didn't live in a city, for example, I'm just piecing together just an idea here rather than basing this on anyone I actually know. This could be in any genre or any walk of life or career choice, really. Your life might not be that different because you're just carrying on doing what you do. You're just maybe not getting on a train or a plane once or twice a month. But I think that it's sort of coming back to my original point, with some of the artists, it was kind of, you need to connect the dots maybe to fuel that creative fire. From my own personal sort of creative side, I found myself with more time than I ever had, because normally my week was kind of framed in that I'd be lucky enough to DJ Friday, Saturday, come home late on a Sunday, be very tired, Monday drag myself into the office, start doing admin, probably not feel like I could do a full studio day, maybe start tinkering with an idea, do a couple of days creative work, another admin day, then be thinking about the weekend and you're off again. And you wouldn't really have much time. Whereas, being in lockdown, and I work in a very rudimentary way. I'm pretty much laptop and a decent pair of headphones kind of guy. I was writing more ideas than ever and finding myself actually quite in a good creative space. That said, I'm really struggling now. I managed to write loads and loads of music like last year, particularly before my son was born. And I don't know whether that was something with it, because I do tend to procrastinate, which is obviously something that's a characteristic of a lot of creatives, but I do find myself dragging my heels a bit if I don't have a deadline. It
probably gave you a hard deadline of like, after this point, you're probably not going to have as much freedom and flexibility. So
exactly, yeah. I definitely felt that was like, this is the hard stop on like when I'm this time is never going to come again,
Yeah.
Because for a lot of other people, it could be like, well, lockdown could go on for another 3 years and you'll still have that time in perpetuity. But for me, it was like, even if I'm locked down, I've got to have a baby. So like, there's no sort of sitting around tweaking hi-hats.
Did your thinking change at all in terms of COVID lockdown and all that stuff? I mean, what I mean by that is, did your sense of like responsibility as a creative or as a label owner? So I guess what I'm trying to get at here is like, in terms of whether you felt like a responsibility to be someone to keep putting music out or to keep putting content out that might uplift people who are having a hard time, or like, people that are locked down or out of work, but also on the other side of like, right now all my artists might be struggling, so we need to figure out, not financially necessarily, but I just mean in terms of that aspect of caretaking sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, there was definitely a bit of that. I mean, I know that when this all started to go down, I can give a couple of good examples. In March time, when everything started to go south, we had scheduled quite a few releases, but two in particular. One was Particle's Thermal EP, which had his track Business Techno on it, which was bubbling up to be a big tune. And we had the Dragon Force EP by Halogenics, which shaped up to be one of the biggest records of the year. And with both those records, we had quite open conversations with the artists where it was like, should we put these on ice for now? And the conversations kind of came around to the fact that it was like, well, when is there ever going to be a good time to release these records? Because we don't know. I mean, we could still be sitting on them now if we had that mindset.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, let's just push on. And then that led me to a conversation that I had with Adam, our label manager. And it was like, well, do we pull back on stuff? Do we release less? Do we release more? Do we stop creating merchandise? Is anyone going to have any money? Is anyone going to want our stuff? And I was like, well, we could, but there's a few reasons not to. And the reasons not to are better than the reasons to. And the reasons not to stop were, A, we have a responsibility to the artists. They've made this music, we've scheduled it. And unless they have a particularly strong feeling about not putting it out, I think we should. B, people, I was always quite interested, and I asked our social media audience about this. Like, we think of this as club music, and it is predominantly club music, but there's so many people who consume our music who never hear it in a club, who've never heard it in a club, you know. So the fact that you feel like, oh, well, there isn't clubs to make tunes big, or you can't hear it on a system, or this kind of, it's important, but there's so many people who consume the music through their phones, their laptops, or we're at home DJing, which is the other thing that we found, that is the people who were buying our stuff were able to spend loads of time mixing at home because it was something to do.
It's true.
You know? And with the merchandise, it was like we had all this new range of stuff to do, and I was like, well, you know, people aren't going to be going out, they're not going to want to buy new clothes, and we found the complete opposite to be true. I mean, we had one of our best ever years last year as a business.
It's funny that, isn't it? I found that actually what people said and what people have been asking for in terms of true fan support, and people being like, look, all these creatives are probably having a rough time. If you can buy direct and, you know, support this and that and the other. I found that to be true for me also.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I know myself, I would go out of my way to support artists I love, labels I love. And people definitely seem to be doing that because, I mean, there's a multitude of factors for that, I think. But, you know, I think the fact that people who were lucky enough to still have some money in their pocket may have had a bit more than they thought they would because they're not spending 50 to 100 quid going out every week.
Yeah. So
spending 25 quid in a t-shirt or buying a few digital releases has meant that, you know, they're still being part of what they do. Because I don't know about you, but like, I haven't stopped loving music.
No.
So, you know, it's not something like, oh, this thing has made me hate creative endeavor or anything like that. It's just that sometimes it doesn't feel maybe as natural because you're not surrounded by it as much.
Yeah.
So, but coming back to the artist thing, the responsibility to the artist, I thought that was really important because there's something I really believe about a label, and it's because sometimes it sounds a bit sort of idealistic, but I'm a big fan of a hardcore punk label called Discord, which is based out of DC and existed for 30 plus years now. And the owner of the label is a guy called Ian Mackay, who's the frontman of an incredible band called Fugazi, who some people may have heard of or not, but he describes the label as being like a living organism. It's like a thing that has feeling, and because people make it up, you know, and you have to look after that. You have to nurture it. You have to make sure that it stays buoyant. And that isn't necessarily through money or it's through many different things. And most of them are, particularly with artists, is hand holding and reassurance and support. Money obviously helps. But there was definitely a disconnect, I felt, that grew, and is slightly there because people have gone off and are not so involved in the thing because you're not seeing them every week, or you're not talking about the releases every week and all this kind of stuff. So
you mean with your artists now?
Yeah, I just feel that there is, because it's just not the same. We're not in the same world right now. So unless you're, you know, one of the things I'm particularly proud of with Critical is that we would, you know, when we do shows, we try and make sure that 90% of the lineup is critical artists. And we got to the point where, you know, sometimes 80% of the shows we're doing were critical shows. So I think that's a big part of what was missing. Is I like to think of a lot of the people we work with as friends, and you miss that personal connection.
It's nurturing. It's that community thing, isn't it? It's that building of community. But the good thing about having had that built beforehand is that you can now you can carry on feeding it. You just have to develop and evolve the way that that's done, in the sense of
and that has been hard. I think from a personal point of view, it's been maybe more difficult because I've had to, you know, me and Adam and George on the label have had to work the hardest we've ever worked this past year.
Like I know we have, just getting our heads down and making sure everything is done the way it needs to be done. And obviously having a baby has meant that my attentions are elsewhere. But I think that you just try and we just tried to do the simple things we could, which is just like email the artist and be like, look, if you need some money, in advance on your royalties, let us know.
Yeah.
We're here. If there's anything we can do, I'm not sure what that is, but just let us know. But at the same time, we're just trying to make sure, because I'm sort of deviating from the point here slightly, but
That's right.
I find it interesting to look at like quite a lot of other labels sort of seem to stop. And like there seemed to be a lot less music released, and I think a lot of people were kind of waiting for this golden time to appear when COVID disappeared and everything would be rosy again. But
yeah, I think there was. I sensed a lot of indecision and people not knowing, which is totally natural, obviously. But I think there's certain people who. I had my last year. I had my timetable sort of mapped out, so I just went with it. To be totally honest with you, and I thought nothing ventured, nothing gained. I kind of saw it as an opportunity to. I kind of saw that the negative and thought, right, what opportunity is there here to make hay and get through and connect? So it may not have been the best way to do it, but for me, it was just like I'm trying not to be as sort of valuable with, as sort of like precious with what it is that I'm putting into the world, because it will still be there. If it's good, it still does well. It's just in a slightly different marketplace, and it's received slightly differently. I don't know.
I completely agree with that. I think that there's a lot to be said for not overthinking things.
Yeah,
but that's a whole other conversation. But I think that you can give. Not overthinking doesn't mean that you haven't given it the attention it deserves.
Absolutely.
It just means you've given it the attention it deserves up to a point where it's like, right, I can let this be free now.
Where it actually serves you, where you're not just sort of getting in your own way. Like, I've discussed this, I think, on every episode of this podcast. Is a big part of the sort of creative struggle I find is like getting in your own way and making not excuses, but being like, oh, I could tweak the mix there, when actually. When you ask the big question about whether that little tweak of this or that or the other will make a difference to how this record is received, the answer is probably it won't. So you're probably just creating barriers because you have an anxiety about putting that thing into the world. And I think we're all guilty of that. I think it's always I'm always thinking about the next plugin or bit of gear that I want to get to help. But actually, I've talked loads on this podcast series about like limitation and how that's such a big factor in helping, and like it's underrated. I
did that. I basically found myself. I would always the procrastination thing would come into it, and like I would always find an excuse to not finish something, and normally blame that on something external that I could do. That I could maybe either purchase or a skill I would learn that would then make this thing something a lot better.
Absolutely.
And in turn, I would probably make it worse and then hate it and then want to set fire to it and myself and then the world.
That's the natural progression. And I guess actually that leads me into like a little note that I've made that I think could be quite an interesting topic to tap into with you, because you'll understand both sides, which is since you've like only recently in the last few years started doing your own music, is there anything that used to annoy you about, or like you recognized as a trait within creatives or artists that you work with, that you didn't understand or like was frustrating before when you were like on the receiving end of it and not necessarily you couldn't necessarily put yourself in that position or empathize because you weren't one of those people that was like in the studio all the time, that you now understand and you sort of think, shit, like I've never recognized how difficult that must be, or little traits like that? I guess.
There's definitely a few things. I think the one thing is like, that's done, just leave it, it's done, it's fine, it sounds great, and you're going, no, I can get another 10% out of it, and that 10% turns into the Fire episode of I've ruined this once beautiful thing, or letting things go, or believing something is good enough, or trusting your own instincts, or needing the appraisal of others to justify the decision. It's such an insular world. I mean, the thing, to sort of give some context, I personally really struggle with making music because I use the time that I feel a lot of people spend learning their craft, building a label. So I was working full time, getting up at 6 a.m, doing an hour on the label, coming home and working 6 till 10 at night, running a label, working in the music industry as well. Whereas I feel that if I was doing that, if I look back on people who were similar age to me, they were making tunes or DJing or whatever, you know what I mean? So that time, I'm now trying to play catch up. And I spent a lot of time collaborating with people for many reasons. One was I didn't really have the time to learn the craft, and I didn't want to do it through the back door, essentially. Maybe some people think I did, I don't know, but whatever. But so I would get samples and maybe try and sketch out an idea, but I would always try and go to a session with some tools rather than just sit there and be like, hey, I'm going to sit here while you write a tune and just put my name on it.
Yeah.
And then as I got myself to a point where the first time I ever released a solo EP was in 2018, which is only 2.5 years ago, which is mad. But the reason I did it was not for any other reason than that, I was already lucky enough to be DJing regularly. My label was very well established and it does just fine. The only reason I wanted to do it was because I love the process. I love it all. I love having an idea and then making it and seeing it through, and then the artwork and then the package and then receiving it and then putting it out. As much as it can be scary, it's just an incredible I just think it's amazing. It's just it's just a beautiful thing. I don't know. It's the reason I started a record label. It's just the reason I started a record label was because I love the whole thing about it. I love all the shit that people don't care about. I love. It just makes me so happy.
Yeah. Every
time we get a new release through, every time we see a piece of artwork that I love that an artist has commissioned for a release, it's just like, this is like, it fuels my soul. It's just amazing.
It's what it's about.
And that's exactly what it's about. And I love holding the record and looking around in the office and seeing all these records we've released and all the great stuff we've done. And it's just like, man, it's just so and to be able to earn a living from it is just, anyway, I'm going off.
No, I know. I think that it is like the ultimate trusting of your judgment, and when it pays off, it's like the ultimate reward as well, especially when the thing's in your hand and you're holding this thing that you've made and you've had the balls to do. It is like the ultimate sort of like, when it goes well, it's the best feeling. And it's like there's two aspects of that. It's like it's the best. I was talking to someone about this other day. When you're writing music and it's flowing and the tune's writing itself, it doesn't happen very often. It might happen once or twice a year, depending on like who you are. And I guess this happens for all creatives. You get into a flow state where you're like, fuck, the whole day's gone and I've just got this tune and I don't even know how it all came together. But I was searching for samples and sounds and everything just worked and it all came together. That's like the ultimate high. And it's the same. It's a similar buzz when like things are happening and things are like, coming together and you've got this nice tangible item that you've got some cool artwork for and like all the tactile elements you've considered and how it's presented and all that stuff coming together is like that is not getting in your way and that is letting it go. And once that letting go feeling is the buzz. It's
yeah. And what you were saying about artists, I mean, the thing no one makes anything and thinks, I don't care if anyone likes it. They don't. If they say that, they don't mean it. Even the most hardcore punk you ever met in your life wants someone to like their record. They're not sitting there making it thinking, I don't give a fuck if no one likes this. I'm making it and it can sell one copy. It's like, no, you want people to hear what you're saying. Whatever you're saying, you want people to hear it, and you want people to. They might not get it. They might not. But you don't want to be universally hated for what you've done because you put so much energy into it.
I would add a really small caveat, which is that if when you're making something you care or consider what people are going to think, then it has a bad influence. But I think people care after the fact, if that makes sense. I'm not thinking about it when I'm making, because that does actually have a detrimental effect on what I'm doing. Or it tends to, because you start tapering and catering sound choices, arrangements, all sorts of things to what you think people want, and that is a recipe for not being as fulfilling, because I just hate the feeling of being controlled by some external source, or like being put in a box, or sort of expected to do a certain thing. I do care about what people think after the thing is done, because you hope that your vision is received. But like, yeah, that would be my sort of slightly longer than what I thought would be a short caveat.
No, I think no, I completely agree, and you're right. And I think that, you know, artists who set out with like some sort of agenda, I mean, it's up to them. But I mean, our A&R policy at Critical is quite sort of simple. It's like, just write what you want to write. Like, your message is what you want to get out there. And I think that, sort of coming back to the things I now understand, you know, I do really understand those fears and those doubts that you have, especially in the lead up. Once you press the button on actually like getting a record pressed, or, you know, obviously we don't do everything on vinyl now, or just, like, once you've got the release date set in stone and you start sending it out, you want a positive reaction because you want people to enjoy what you've done.
Yeah.
But the fear is, I don't know what the fear is based. I don't know whether you want to, like, I suppose it depends on your motivation for releasing music as well. Like, there's clearly some people who release music and they're purely the only reason they want to do it is to get DJ gigs.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's like a thing. That's cool. You can do that. And there's other people who release music because they're like, I really like making music and I like the things that we talked about, you know, like getting artwork and all that kind of, the process is. There's some people who are just like, music flows out of them and they just want to get it out into the world. I think there's lots of different reasons for it. And I found that the reason, I think pretty much every artist we work with on Critical has a similar thread running with them. And that's something that the reason I was so late to the party writing music was that I got to a point where I was like, I'm not doing this to get gigs. I'm not doing this for any other reason than I've got this few tunes now that I actually think are pretty good. And if you feel quite good about it, I think that's a good start, right? If you're like, I like this, I like listening to it, I feel quite proud of it, that's a good start, right? Which is sometimes half the battle.
It is the ultimate, I think, because it then means, because I find like if you feel that way and you're sure about it and you've maybe lived with it for a bit, and even if it goes out and people aren't that keen on it, it doesn't really matter, because it rarely happens that way, by the way, because if you have good taste and you like what you've done, it's pretty likely that other people will.
So, and I just found that I think that, you know, the other artists on the label is just like, you know, we try not to enforce any sort of very sort of strict like release schedule or policy with artists. We don't run the label in a certain way that's like, right, we need 3 Eno releases this year to make this amount of money, for example. We don't work like that. It's just like, hey, Alex, what do you want to do this year? Oh, you know, I might want to write an album. Okay, cool. Let's start working on a plan. Or with other artists, it might be, it just kind of comes together. I mean, you know, from working with us, we'd known each other for a long time. You got the new project. It was like, I'd really love you to do a record for us. Oh yeah, cool. When do you want to do it? Oh, maybe around then. Okay, cool. Let's get some music together, just start working on it. But that's just a really natural thing. And whilst it doesn't feel very, I don't know, music business, it shouldn't be like that. It should just be like some people who have a really similar outlook, who have different things they can bring to the table, who want to collaborate on something that's just going to be really just an enjoyable process, right? You want to work in a way that you're going to do something good, because not everything has to be an anthem. Not every piece of music has to change the world, but everything should be done for a reason. You shouldn't just be like, oh, Jack, give me a couple of tunes. I need to, you know, make 300 quid this month. You know what I mean? Shouldn't be like that.
No. And I think actually, maybe where you'll benefit from having started a bit later producing is you've probably already got that confidence, and where you understand the mechanism of how everything works. I certainly feel that having done this full time now for like nearly 10 years, that it maybe wouldn't have been as fluid to work on a solo EP with you if this was 10 years ago, because it would have been more doubt, more worry, less understanding really about all the sort of mechanical stuff. So the you know, just the timeline and like all that, like, and also I just know what my vision is now, where I wouldn't have before. I think that just comes with experience. It's like understanding all of that stuff, and also just like with every year you are here on the earth, you understand what you're doing better, you understand yourself better, and it's always just like a slight bit of learning every year. You've learned a bit more and you know a bit more about yourself, and therefore you get a bit more confidence in what you're doing, and that bleeds out. I think there's a lot to be said for that. I couldn't be sitting here talking to you on a podcast if I hadn't stopped getting in my way, like just over a year ago. I was thinking about this for ages, and it was one of those things that I wanted to discuss on the podcast that I knew I had to overcome to be able to do the podcast. So all of that stuff, I think you'll probably have already in the bank, because you've... Yeah,
that's a good point, actually. That word overcome, it's like the hurdles that you maybe don't understand until you've actually put yourself through the process of finishing a record. It's like, I just can't get the mix right, or, you know what, I don't like it anymore. You'd be like, what's wrong with you? Just finish it. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I wouldn't ever say that to an artist because that's really disrespectful, but in my head I'd be like, it sounds done. Like, if there's some hurdle you can't get over, like, can you just not push yourself a bit more? And sometimes it's like, no. Mm-hmm. You know, the amount of music that I'm sure, you know, we all have on our computers where it's like, you can play that to someone and be like, this is amazing. You'd be like, oh, no, it's just garbage. The snare's not right, but I can't find the right snare. Be like, well, the snare sounds fine.
I think it's just really easy to be objective about other people's music compared to your own.
Of course. And that's, yeah. That's where, I was just going to say, that's where a label, you know, that's where we should, that's a place that we should be able to, you know, offering artists that reassurance. But the thing you have to remember is as well that you can tell an artist the snare's fine till you're blue in the face, but they still might not believe you. So,
but again, that's basically, you know, the getting in the way aspect. It's like the tune, some of the tunes that I've been most confident in. I listen back and still think the mixes could be improved here and there, but I'm like, I'm really confident in how that is as it is. So sometimes you have to live with it for a bit, or the right person has to tell you it's right, for example. So, like, I've got a select group of people who I talk to quite a lot, maybe 3 or 4 people who I'm, you know, sending music to almost daily, or like, you know, and they the same with me. And it's like, but probably me more sending out, because I have that issue big time where I'm like, it's hard to be objective. So you almost need someone to be like, yeah, this is good. Like, this is what I would sculpt or change, or maybe, and then you know, take that on board. Yeah. And that as someone who works totally independently for the most part, but for like guest releases with yourself and like Exit, it's helpful and necessary.
Well, again, that's a really good point, because that I got to a point where I was like, I really want to do this the first EP I did was the Ski Mask EP, and I was like, but I'm not sure about certain things, but I don't really. And the irony of being someone who's surrounded by incredibly talented artists and not using any of them. Because I think one thing that's a bit of a mystery to people, particularly those starting out, is that they think that everyone knows how to do everything. You know, Jack Fitzpatrick must know everything about music production. You don't. No one does. You know what I mean? It's like even the best producer in the world, there's, you know, Nick and Tyson Martine from Noisy are still learning things. Everyone's still learning. But everyone thinks it's just this thing that certain people just know all the answers to. But actually utilising the creatives around you, that's collaboration, that's support, that's sharing of knowledge, which is really, really important, you know?
100%.
I mean, someone like Martin Mephius is, for someone who's so technically astute, he's one of the best sharers of knowledge I know.
100%.
You know, he's absolutely, you know, all about like sharing the wealth, which a lot of people probably would assume he isn't, because it'd be like this dark art that, like, I'm not telling anyone how to do what I do. He'd happily, you know, the amount of sessions I've done with him where I'm completely out of my depth, I'll be like, how do you do that? And he'll show me. I still don't understand after he showed me, because it's so ridiculous what he's doing. But it's the same thing. It's just so important that, and I found that with me, I was kind of burying my head in like trying to do it all myself, thinking you have to do it yourself because all your peers do it themselves. And if you don't do it, you're weak and you're not a proper producer. And it was like, I need some help. So what do? Do I let the creativity die and become frustrated and probably never do anything? Or do I actually reach out, in this instance, to Alex Eno, because we've worked a hell of a lot together, both as a label and also musically. And he has a very sort of effective but simplistic way of working, so I can really understand it. you know, because I don't feel like I'm a producer. I don't really get bogged down in the science. I kind of just like to write ideas and kind of hope they come together. But with him, I'll be able to show him something and be like, if you do this, this, and this, it will sound 10 times better.
Yeah.
Do it. Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
But he's not telling me to like do crazy advanced stuff that I can't get my head around. Because sometimes that can be very counterproductive because you just become frustrated. So that reaching out thing I think is such an important part of the process. But we all learn from that as well, because I think that deep down a lot of people, it's like I reached out to you for some help recently, and you know, we're friends, we've known each other a long time, but what you did is time consuming and took time out of your day to do. But you like to think that you would have got something from that, not only because you helped someone you know and wanted to help them, because otherwise you would have done it, but also there might have been a little thing that you hadn't done for a while that kind of refreshed some creative process, or you just like maybe got an idea from just opening up your computer when maybe you hadn't planned on opening up your computer that day. So there's value in all these things.
It comes out in the wash, is the way I think about it. And I feel like it was something that I learned at university. It was a bit of a hippy dippy idea, but it was called like the gift economy or something like that. And it's basically something to do with the idea that creative people have got the gift of understanding ideas, and ideas are free and they're out there, and there is no secret. It's all just ideas are there to be had and shared, and there's nothing. You're not devaluing yourself or like doing yourself a disservice by sharing ideas, because to be able to, it's like people. It's like I don't want to do a sample pack, right? But there are certain people who do sample packs or are worried about doing sample packs and thinking that, oh, if I share all this, people will just be able to recreate you. But actually, that does yourself. You're selling yourself short, because actually, you could give everybody everything that you have access to. Same samples, same synths, everything, and they wouldn't come up with the same idea as you. And that's where actually the main topic of this whole Must Make podcast conversation comes from. It's from getting into the not like the stuff that you can learn on YouTube, you know, how to do this, that, and the other. We all do that. I do that. But it's the interesting part of it for me is like the little magic bit that happens where say you gave everyone exactly the same things, they'd all come up with something different. And it's that vision, those ideas, all of that you can't really learn or give to other people. You can give people the technical stuff. So like Martin's been really helpful with me before in the past, and you know, there's Charlie Brake, who I speak to a lot, and Luke LSB is really helpful, particularly with like musical progressions and sort of arrangements and stuff. But they're aware, and I'm aware, that when we're talking about ideas, we're generally talking about that and not the other stuff, unless it's very specifically like, is the mix on this okay? Does this sound okay? Yeah. Which is usually me, actually. It's usually me going, I'm quite cool with this idea. What does the mix sound like? And usually that is actually an indication that maybe I'm not 100% cool or like finished with the idea, because I'm getting caught up in the other stuff.
Yeah. I think that, the thing is as well that I think that people, once they actually start, because like making music is difficult. It's graft. You know, you have to really kind of work at it. I think some people don't, but I think for most people you do have to put the time in, and you know. But it doesn't necessarily have to be this thing that's like really shouldn't be. It should be enjoyable, you know. And I think there's this kind of air around, particularly around drum and bass, where it's kind of seen as being like you have to, you know, God, it's long hours of just tweaking one sound, and then by the end of it you just want to kill yourself. But that's where the collaboration thing comes in. I think that's where, you know, that's why I really enjoy, you know, I still really love collaborating, because I find that it's nice to spend, I mean, obviously we can't really do it at the moment, but it's really nice to spend time in people's creative spaces, working together, just seeing how they work, showing them how you work, what things you bring, you know, how you approach processes. You know, I know from every time I've done a studio session, I think maybe I get more out of it than other people, because, you know, I'm a bit behind, but you know, the times that we've sat in a room together, you come away and be like, oh, that was really, you know, it should be enjoyable first and foremost, but also you and you spend time with people you like spending time with, and you're creating, that's a great combo. But then you're exchanging ideas and methods and things, and I think there's a lot more of that goes on than maybe people think.
It's reassuring as well, because
everyone's in the same boat, right? Everyone does this. You could be to the outside world absolutely killing it, but you still spend a lot of time sat on your own looking at a computer screen trying to get something to sound good. Mm-hmm. We all do it. It just depends at what level and what style and what.
But ultimately, also just knowing that everybody struggles. So, like, I think a lot of the feedback I've had from people in messages and stuff like that about the podcast is that people have felt reassured that all of the people I've interviewed so far, and I can definitely say with some certainty that all people who write music the way we do have shit days as well, and that understanding that we're everybody who endeavours to do something good or creative struggles or has really tough periods of time where things aren't working, and that can be really difficult. And also have periods of time where you're staring at a screen and nothing's happening, or staring at a keyboard and nothing's coming to you, and periods of no ideas at all. And it's all of that kind of interconnected relationship with creative process, like all of the aspects of it. So like the character that comes to it, the tools they're using, how they approach it, their sort of methods, the time they work, what they like to read, how much sleep they get, how much coffee they drink, what their little quirks are. That's the interesting bit to me. It's like what connects everybody and what makes everybody different within the creative realm. And
yeah, but I think every time I've tried to, I don't know about you, but I mean, if I try and adopt that, like, right, I'm going to sit down my laptop every day this week and I'm going to open up Ableton and I'm going to make a tune. I'm going to start an idea every day. Sometimes that works, but most of the time we're just doing that. What's the point in that? Like, I really believe in, like, I've said this earlier on, and it's become a bit of a running joke with the critical artist, but like, it's not everything you write has to be some sort of magnum opus and like life-changing piece of music. Sometimes this is the famous quote that I said that's kind of a bit ridiculed now, but sometimes a tune is just a tune, right? It's just a thing. It's just a tune. It doesn't have to be. If it means something to you and you like it and you enjoy DJing it or whatever, and it sounds cool, it doesn't have to, not everything has to change people's lives, it just there has to be a point to it, but you can't expect everything you do to be to such a degree that everyone's just going to be bowled over every time you walk in the room. Do you know what I mean? It just isn't, life isn't like that.
No, because otherwise you'd have the same regard for everything you've ever done, because you'd be aiming for the same level every time. And if you didn't reach that, you wouldn't ever release anything, and then you just wouldn't exist. So, but I think that for me, I've kind of trying to force myself to be like, right, I'm going to write a sketch a day, and then at the end of the month, I'm going to pick the best 4, and that's going to be my EP. And then sometimes that you can get some good stuff out of that, but 9 times out of 10, it will be like, oh, that's a really cool sound. And then you base it off one thing or one idea, or you actually, I don't know if that's the same for you, but I've found that there'll be something that really resonates with you that actually drives you to create, rather than the necessity to create forcing you into a corner where you don't really make anything. Nothing really happens like that for me. If I come to the studio every day during the week for the most part. And I'm trying now to get more into a routine of maybe not doing that, because I was always of the mindset that if you're definitely not going to make anything if you don't put yourself in the seat to allow things to happen, right?
Yeah.
But I found through putting myself in the seat every day that actually you can do more damage than if you just say to yourself, right, there is value in you not coming into the studio today and not trying to do stuff and just trying to engage with some stuff that might give you some ideas or make you more thoughtful, or listen to some other music, or just let some steam off another way. I always struggle with that because I feel like I should be at the studio because it's work and because I should be working, and that's a tough thing for me. But I'm getting to a point now where I know in the next few weeks I want to take a week off to read some books. I've got a whole bookshelf full of books that I haven't read, so I just buy them when I get recommended them, and then they just sit there. And I know I just want to take some time off and read them and do some thinking, and just.
I completely agree. I think it's one of the best things you can do. Like I've reached that point right now. I've got to, like, New Year, right? Open up the computer, tidied up my sample library, did all the stuff that I could do that meant I didn't actually make any music. I delete all the plugins I don't use anymore. Just like, right, got my computer kind of knocked into shape. Kind of started thinking about plans for stuff I want to do and writing. And then everything I've written in the past week and a half has been utter garbage. I hated everything. And then any idea I have liked, I've gone to work on and made it worse. And I'm just like, it's awful. Having a really rough time with it. So I made peace with it, and I was just like, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it for a bit and just come back when I've actually got some ideas, or like, yeah.
I've said this before, I think, in previous discussions, but I think I'll reiterate it again, is that often at the end of a project, a big project, I'll get when I'm approaching the end, or when I'm at the end of a project, I'll get this kind of like creeping in of melancholy, where you've almost got to start again, or and because of that thing of trying to recapture the buzz of a tune you've written or a project you've done or whatever, you're almost trying to extend the tail of that by not signing off, and so you feel that melancholy when that's starting to happen. So and I'm feeling like at the minute I've done a big splurge from like for all of the second half of last year. I was just in here writing, and it was a real struggle. Got some shit done, got some bits ready to go, but I now feel like now I've done the splurge, instead of trying to force that and or like feel that melancholy, it's almost like give yourself some objectivity and move away for a bit, do something else, and then come back and hopefully see the stuff with hear it with fresh ears, because that detachment is just so important in terms of being able to be objective with your own stuff and know whether you actually like it. So I was going to ask, one of the things I was going to ask you actually is that, like, do you find, I guess you would never be able to answer this like with a real answer, but like, do you get that feeling when you finished a Kasra project, and I guess does keeping busy with the label, like, do you feel like a melancholy if you weren't busy with the label? Is that why the label's so relentless? Or
that's one of the things. Actually, that's a good question. I think there's two answers to that. One of the answers is it comes back to the thing about when COVID happened and like whether we continue with the label. One of the other reasons to carry on with the label was A, because I love doing it, and B, what the hell else am I going to do? You know, like I want to, I'm not going to suddenly go off and start a food delivery company or something. This is what I do. I own a record label. I don't DJ because that's out the window, but this is like my life's work. I need to carry it on for many reasons. We have staff, we have artists, we have responsibilities, but also because I actually just really love doing it. So why would you stop doing it? And then in relation to what you're saying about coming to the end of a project, you see, for me, once you've finished the production side of it, that's the bit I kind of breathe a bit of a sigh of relief at, to be honest, because I'm like, that's done. I'm happy, I think. Now I can do the other stuff I love, which is like talking to artwork and like choosing vinyl colours and like how we're going to package it and what kind of concept can we get to market the record and all that stuff, because I just fucking love all that shit so much.
Yeah,
that's just as exciting for me as you know, like seeing finished artwork and then coupling it with a vinyl color and then thinking, you know what, actually maybe if we varnish this bit and foil that bit and do this and all that, it's just so fun that it's the life of the release. The last single I did, the Let It Slide single, which came out in December, I finished in May.
Long,
which is mad, which is a long time, but then I was having a baby in the middle of that and I wanted to kind of wait, and you know, there was no rush because of COVID and there was other projects that should come, we felt should come out before it. But that whole process, whilst it seems like a very long process, it's just so enjoyable, you know. And I think that we're again lucky with a lot of the artists on the label, and that they all share that enthusiasm for it. I think because we kind of impart that on them a bit. Be like, you know, every artist can do a vinyl if they want on any release, really. There's never really a time we'll say no. The only time actually we would say no is if it's production deadline dependent.
Yeah.
But me and the label team love that just as much as the artists. It's just such a fun thing to do.
and brings some real life and a different feel to a project. And that's why we've kind of maintained the physical side to it. But yeah, I feel a certain way at the end of, like, when the music is kind of boxed off, but I think maybe more, phew, I got through that one.
Yeah.
And also, I think one of the things that's really changed for me in the past sort of 2 years is that I used to really fear a blank Ableton page or a blank door page on my door, because I'd just be like, oh Christ, where do I start? But now I feel excited about it.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe is the change.
That's important. And I think if you did feel apprehension at looking at a blank page, I think that would be a worry. Like, that would be...
Yeah. But I think there's a point you go through. I don't know if you had it, and maybe it was a very long time ago, but I definitely felt that, I mean, it still happens to everyone, I'm sure, but you start an idea, doesn't really pan out. You start another one, doesn't really pan out. But every time there's a point where you're at where you really don't know what you're doing, that it become quite demoralizing. So you then have to, I found that the best way to kind of to deal with that would be like, if I'm going to open Ableton and try and do something, I want to learn at least something today. Yeah. So even if I don't write anything, I'll try and write something, but in the process of writing it, I'll be like, let's think of it. How do you make a Reese just using oscillators? Like, you didn't know how to do that yesterday, and now you know how to do it.
Yeah.
So even though you didn't write a tune, you know now how to make a Reese. That's cool. Or like, how do I want to make an LFO, the bass do this. I've never done that before. Instead of spending 4 hours making a tune that sounds like garbage, I'm going to learn how to do that one thing.
Yeah.
So every day you're kind of building the little blocks of the little bits of information you need to then call back on.
Definitely.
So it's creating a space where you're kind of when you're in it, you're getting it's not all negativity all the time.
No. I think that's the thing that you have to default to if things aren't happening. It's about maintaining a playfulness and an open-mindedness about learning new stuff. I try not to open fresh projects unless I've got either a sample or a drum break or something to start with. It'll be rare that I'll go, let's just work on something today and open up.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the thing. You have some sort of basis. So it could be an idea. You could have read something, or you could but those things those bits of culture or whatever it is, or conversations or something you have that you then take to the studio, they're like, I don't know, without sounding like a naff kind of soundbite, it's like those are samples that you take to the studio from life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That then fuel that want to create something. So you'll have your little palette of stuff, and it could be, I heard this really cool slogan in a show, or this word, and then I've got this really nice pad and this break. I feel like I've built something around it, and then you're off. But I definitely think it's like, I can't remember who said this to me, but like, music production is like learning a language where they put another 100 words in the dictionary every week. You're never gonna, you just can't, no one's completed it. But I think that one thing that's interesting from all the collaboration I've done is that everyone works so differently.
Yeah. There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. There's just so many different ways of doing everything. No, there is no right way of doing it, which is what actually takes a lot of the strain off. If you just say to yourself, well, actually, there is no right way.
And if I'm perfectly honest, there's something I probably feel I should probably put out there. I feel that I tried to adopt a lot of people's working methods by sharing studio space with them. And, you see how, okay, so they do it like that. Or that looks like a good way to do it. And I'd be like, I don't actually like this. And then you think, well, maybe I don't like music production. I'd be like, well, no, that's not it. You don't like doing it that way.
Exactly.
It's like Alex Eno. As much as I love working with him, I will always exchange stems rather than projects, because he works in Fruity Loops, and I look at him working in Fruity Loops. It looks like a madman. Like, what the fuck is this program? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
But I could have looked at what he was doing and been like, you know what, I'm going to ditch Ableton and get Fruity Loops and work like that. But I may have ended up never making a piece of music because I tried to adopt something that just isn't natural. You just kind of find your way, I think.
Yeah. I think one thing I was just thinking of with regard to the process and the artwork and the putting things into the world. I wondered whether there was a difference between, or whether you could sum up like the vision for your creative. I guess let's try and do it as one thing, because it might be interesting, and if you can't, you can divide it into critical and like Kasra. But I guess if you could sum up like what your creative sort of vision is for, what your creative vision is, maybe in like a longish sentence.
Yeah, I think it's definitely sort of split into kind of, I have my own personal, I think one way to put it is like, it's down to the individual as well as the kind of collective. So that means, for instance, with what I do with my releases and kind of the label as a whole, is just try and make sure that everything kind of gets across the personality of the person who's making the music. So since we started working with a kind of certain group of artists, as it were, for the past sort of 6-7 years, it was really important to me that those artists chose the people who created the artwork for it, for example, because obviously the music is always the key part. You know, you can have a great bit of artwork, but if the music is garbage, no one's going to care.
So is that like trusting their vision as long as it sort of remotely aligns with yours, sort of thing?
Well, and I think one of the things we do is that we take our time to actually get to know the artist before we kind of commit to working with people long term.
Yeah,
or working with people on a regular basis. We find that personality is really, really important, because it's like, I don't know, maybe from the outside, but seeing as we're kind of regarded as one of the, in inverted commas, bigger labels now, we might be seen as some sort of super efficient business machine, but we are a very small operation of 3 people, and we have quite a fluid release schedule, and our A&R policy is sometimes quite hands-off, because we put a lot of trust in the artist to kind of deliver what they want to make, and we never really get involved to a level where we're making creative decisions for artists unless they really want us to. So we have a trust in the artist to impart their personality through the music, and then the kind of vision for the label as a whole is that the umbrella of like critical is essentially, I just wanted critical to be seen as like a label that is known for putting out good underground drum and bass of all different styles, shapes, but it's predominantly, the word underground is quite hard to substantiate, but I think people who know drum and bass kind of get what that means. And then within that, everything we put out has to be, I think, quality again is quite a what's the word I'm looking for? Subject is a very subjective word, but from our point of view, we know how we want the label and the music and the artists on that label to be perceived. So everything is done for a reason, I suppose, is the kind of creative process to a degree. It's like every bit of artwork, every release, everything is done with a care and attention to detail that means that when it's out in the world, we've done the best job with everything. So from a creative point, because that sounds quite cold and sort of efficient, as it were, from a creative point of view, it's all about hand-holding the artist to make sure that they get the project they want to put together musically done the right way, and then bringing everything together so that it looks and feels and is presented in such a way that it just feels like something worth taking notice of, because there's so much of the stuff is kind of either, it feels like, and I don't really, to be honest as well, we don't really care what other labels do. I don't really look at what other labels do anymore. I kind of feel like maybe that's a bit ignorant, but we just kind of exist in our own little space of like, we just get on with what we do. And we impart, there's no real rules on how things should look or feel, other than it's like, if you really love that and you think it represents what you do, then we're going to get behind it. But thankfully, we all kind of have the same, from getting to know artists, they have a similar outlook. And that just imparts in the whole, it's because the creative process is all down to people's individual feelings likes, dislikes, and honestly, I can't really put it any other way than I just like people who give a shit about what they do.
Yeah.
And it's really, everyone we work with, be it new artists or established artists, like they really care about what they do. And it's not done to just be like, I just want to get shows, or I just want to be famous, for example. Not that you're ever going to be particularly famous making underground drum and bass. You know what I mean? It's all done with good intention. And I think that feeds into everything we do. And I know that certain areas of the scene might see us as some sort of like big, not big, but like slightly corporate-esque machine because we have an event brand and we do all this, that, and the other. But it's all done because I want everyone that we create with to be able to sustain their creativity by earning a living from it. It's so important to me. If you can give people careers off the back of doing something you love, I mean, fucking hell, it's amazing. Other than being a charity, I mean, what else? Like, it's just an incredible thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just such a wonderful thing to be part of. So I don't know if I've really answered the question there because it's not as really clear.
I think you've answered it from like a label perspective, but I wonder how that aligns with your. I guess you could be more abstract in the sense of not just Kasra, but like not just Kasra the artist, but like Kasra the Kasra, like the all doing all of it, like what the sort of run through is for all of it, the thing that cuts through everything. I've basically just got like a couple of notes written down, which are like about sort of like I guess this could feed in a way. It's like what your vision is, but also like what the rules are, like what are the sort of like hard and fast things that you're like non-negotiables in terms of the way that you do things, and your vision. That's like just to add a bit more context to the question, I guess.
For me personally, like how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think if it isn't just like your vision for Kasra, the drum and bass producer, but Kasra the sort of that covers all of it, like the...
Yeah, I think a lot of what I said probably does is probably a lot of my sort of self-imparted beliefs. I mean, I've kind of got this... One of the things that really drives me is the reason I started a label is because I really believe in, like, I suppose, like the underdog. And I come from a background of sort of alternative guitar music in the 90s where people would just make records in their bedrooms and press them and get them out into the world. And then that morphed into seeing that, rave and drum and bass culture was basically the same thing. It's all quite sort of punk and alternative. And it was just, people making something, pressing it themselves and hoping it would get out there. And that's something I really kind of like to hold on to. I feel like, being part of the underground doesn't make you weak or doesn't make you, less important. Underground can be seen as being like a bit of a dirty word, or, a bit of an Urban Outfitters cool word that you put on t-shirts. But no, I really believe in it. It's like, there was a point in Critical where we could have gone down the road a lot of labels went through about sort of 2012, like putting vocals and everything and trying to get on the radio. And I just went the other way. I was like, what the fuck would you want to do that? Because I really believe that you have to, for me, the creative process is like, it has to mean something to you. You have to really care about it. Because it is a commodity and you can make money off it, but it's not the reason to do it. The reason to do it is because you actually care, and I think that's, I mean, without trying to sound sort of holistic and like I'm some sort of, revolutionary, we really, really give a shit about what we do. We really, really, and I really, the music is the most important thing. The people and the music they make are the most important thing. And that's something I really, really believe in. And that's how you form a community, and that's how you form something that means something a bit more than just throwing some tunes out and hoping they go number one on Beatport.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing I was built up with. Like, the labels I loved were little home industry things. We're not working out some big fancy office, and we're not like buying yachts. It's underground drum and bass, but we've dedicated our lives to it. Like, I realised I'm 43 now. Critical's 20 next year. Been doing this for nearly, half of my adult life. And for, a few years at the start of it, it was always like, well, I'll do this for a bit and then I'll go and do something else. And it was like, after a while, it was like, no, I think I'm actually all right at it. And B, it was like, no, this is what you do. This is who you are.
I was literally going to ask you, like, what would you be doing if you weren't doing this? But if you've been doing it that long, it's like...
Well, I was doing it for 10 years, pretty much working other jobs. I was marketing at Rough Trade Records, and then I worked in music management with artists, stadium level artists and stuff like that. So I would probably still be doing that. But I'm trying to answer the question. I just think the creative process is so individual, and there's so many different things tied up in it. And I think it's really like, I think, care, because ultimately, like, everyone has so many different routes to the end result. The end result for us is always good people making really good music that you're all really passionate about and presenting it in the best way you can. And that's kind of like, that's what a record label should do, I think. So we try to always endeavour to do that at the end result. And how you get there is through care, attention to detail, really believing in what you do, and taking time out to like make sure that when you are A&Ring a record, you pick the best music that artist has, and helping them get there, and choosing the best artwork that's going to represent them the best way. And that's why I try and adopt to my, I want every record to feel like a bit of an event, so like, it took me 6 months to put a record out. It's like, I took loads of time over the artwork, how it looked, how it felt.
How, like, this isn't me saying that you do repeat the process, but I'm wondering how you keep interested, because the process of putting out a record is always the same.
Well, that's why we're quite a schizophrenic label. Because I'm one thing I always get frustrated about is that people think we're just like a neuro label or some sort of like underground, key of F miserable roller label. It's like we put out such different music. Mainly because I have, my tastes are that, I mean, the A&R policy is still pretty much like, if I like it, we'll put it out kind of thing. But, if you look at across the past year, the kind of things we released, every record is very, very different. And the people you deal with are different. And that's where the personality thing comes in, because every project has its own set of challenges and creative highs and lows. And, working on a record with you is very different to working on a record with Boo.
Yeah.
And we're doing the same things in the same month. And it's like two different projects. Well, it is two different projects, obviously, but the processes, you'd be surprised, are actually quite different.
Really?
Yeah, because people have different ways of working. And, Boo has a team, Boo has a management team. He has 3 people involved in his decisions, as well as him. And that hasn't actually been problematic, but with some artists it can be problematic.
Yeah.
Whereas with yourself, you are well versed in what to do. You know what you like. You know how you want it to look. Your project is a very good example. The creative process with us has been very hands off.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
Doesn't mean there hasn't been a process involved.
Yeah,
but the process has been very much, Jack, we love what you do. Would you like to do a record for us? Yes, I'd love to do a record for Critical. Okay, we and you have a conversation for a few weeks about what tunes it is. Tunes it will be that will make up the project. We agree those, and then it's like, well, I've got an idea for the artwork in mind, and then I'll see the artwork and we'll go, wow, that looks great, or not, as the case may be, but in this case it was great, and it's kind of done. And it's like we do what we do, and it's very, very easy.
Yeah. I think I just knew. I always just know how I want things to be, But
that's the vision.
Yeah.
You see, you have the vision, and a lot of artists we work with do have that vision, and that's something we look for in them.
Yeah, sure.
Because I don't want to do, again, coming back to my thing about the creative process, I don't want to do things just for the sake of it. I want the artist to be like, well, we like things to look this way, and we want to write this kind of music because this is what we really like. And that's like, okay, cool. That's a reason to do something, not just whack a vocal on it, get me a radio plugger. I want to be headlining SW4 next year, because that's like, that's fine. That's just not what we do.
Yeah, I think I think anyone who gets into it for that reason is probably never going to be interviewed by me on this podcast. And I don't mean that in a sort of snobbish, fuck off if you're into that, you can't come on here. But I just think that's not the side of things I'm interested in. Although the more and more consideration I do give to that, and the less scathing I am in that judgment, it's good. It's better for you it's better for me to not be so scathing in that consideration, because everyone's got different things to think about within their own individual lives.
Yeah, I think that as I've got older, I've realised that, as much as I kind of, I don't necessarily respect it as much if people want to go down that route. It's also like, who am I to say what someone else?
Absolutely. And everyone's got different, they come from different beginnings. They might have different responsibilities they've got to fulfill. So not everybody is as occupied as I am, and most people I know, in terms of thinking and beating themselves up and contemplating what this is all about. Some people just write fucking music and that's it, and they don't think too much more than that about it. There is no deep and meaningful underlying message to go with it. It is just, I wrote some tunes today and there you go. It's got much less investment in terms of emotion or expression. It's just some tunes. So,
and that doesn't mean it isn't warranted, is it? It doesn't mean, because some people love that, because not everyone needs to know the story. Not everyone cares.
No.
Most people just consume stuff, and it is what it is.
But that's where I feel like we're kind of agreeing, or maybe like what you're saying is something that I think of as well, is that the richness comes from all the extra stuff. So the richness in a project comes from the vision, the understanding, the involvement in all aspects of it, conveying your personality, your ideas, your visual representation of the music you've made, and making sure those are aligned, and also it's why I started doing all those little chats, not just for like random bits of content, but also it means you can sort of get into the personalities behind the music, and you can talk about the process behind the music, and that gives an extra richness as well, in terms of people who listen to this will listen to you talking about the label and the pod and your music, and maybe that gives some of them some extra context and understanding about why something is the way it is, or and I think that's like, I remember being at university and talking about fine art and design and all this sort of like arty-farty stuff, and people saying, well, if you look at a piece of art and you need to read the caption to understand it, it's not working. And I'm like, well, actually, no, I think it's the opposite. It's like, once you understand it, it becomes richer, and then there's certain stuff that you don't need to read a little caption about. It just works as is. But all of that stuff is valid.
I think as well, like something I've been thinking about the question about the creative process. I think it's very, I think it's so individual sometimes, because if you think about like the process of being like writing a single, for example. So I'm trying to finish off a single at the moment, the one that you helped me with. So the A side kind of feels like it's done, and I'm trying to write the B side. The creative process for that is kind of all over the place, like in terms of writing. So I've got some demos I really like, and I'm trying to finish a couple of them. And then when they're finished, you kind of feel like, well, maybe that will fit with that project now. Because sometimes, as you well know yourself, a tune can change from being one thing and end up being a completely different thing by the end of its life, or creative life, as it were. I sometimes think the creative process is really like, it's like in the doing. It's like you just kind of feel it out. And I think if you, again, comes back to the thing about just having a reason for doing stuff, and actually your intentions are not pure is not the right word, but you're just like, you want to know that from my point of view, the reason to put out the last record I did was because I've made some music that I felt really strongly about, and I really enjoyed it, and I felt like this is good stuff, and I wanted it to represent me. And I feel like you want everything to represent, I stand by every record released, and I want the artist to be proud of everything they've done, and for it to, to be like we did. Not that it should be seen as a job, it's like, we did this really well. Like this deserves to exist, kind of thing.
Yeah. I like the saying. I like what you just said about being in the doing, because I think it's like I remember. I think the best way to learn and the best way to get to the best results is to just go through the process and not try and presuppose what that is. It's literally just trust the process.
A lot of it's feeling. A lot of it is feeling. So much of what we do is like, assessing people's personalities to a degree and how you work together. And, this is from a label point of view. And then getting a feeling of like, okay, well, this artist really wants to do this. We should support them doing that. But some people don't care, and but you get in a gut how you feel about stuff. And not necessarily saying it comes naturally, but it's just, in a way it should, I suppose, because it's an extension of who you are, the creative process. Because ultimately, not everyone is creative, right?
Yeah.
Some people don't have it in them because they don't either care or it's just not something they're giving any attention to. It doesn't mean they couldn't be if they wanted to be, but some people just don't regard that part of their personality. It's like, some people aren't sporty, or some people aren't good at maths. You just maybe don't care about that kind of aspect.
Yeah.
It's like some people will say, "Oh, I don't really care about music." And to you or I, you'd be like, "What? Are you okay? Like, what's wrong with you?" But they don't. In the same way that I don't care about EastEnders, it's like whatever.
I find it to be a very broad spectrum as well, because there's some people who just care about it so much but aren't necessarily talented and just put loads and loads and loads and loads of hours in, and it eventually pays off for them. Not because what they end up making isn't good, because it is, but they're not. It doesn't come as naturally. They just put loads of effort because they love it. And then there's the other end of the spectrum of people that are incredibly talented who can't put the work in for whatever reason, not through laziness, but just like can't get over some of the barriers we've talked about in terms of letting go and all that other stuff. And it doesn't happen for them. No,
and I sometimes wish that there was like, there's some artists who, it's not fair to name them, but you come across them and you're just like, I know you don't really. It's not that you don't care, but you just have such a relaxed attitude to what you do that you just bang them out. And it's just like, how do you do that? Like, how do you not? And like, their stuff could be good. Like you can listen to it and be like, that's a really good tune. But like, oh yeah, I did it a couple of hours or whatever. It's like just a thing. And you'd be like, what? How did you do that? Like, and everyone's so different because it's so personal.
Mm. The best ones are the ones that come quickly though. There's
Yeah.
It's not a lie to say that, and I think it's always borne out in my experience anyway.
Yes, yeah, completely agree. I mean, anything I've written that's been like, because you lose energy for a project the more and more you listen to it as well, because it's just human nature. You just can't.
100%. And you can't recapture the vibe of when it came together in a good way. So
no, and that bit is like, oh my god, like you said earlier, it's just like that bit is just so. I can't think of a feeling. The only feeling I can liken it to slightly is like when you fall in love with a record. I don't know if you had that feeling when you listen to an album. Going to probably sound my age now, and I saying to people listen to an album, but you're like, you finish it and you're like, I can't wait to listen to that record again. It's so fucking good. Yeah. And that feeling you get where you're like, you've done the intro and you like. And then it drops. You're like, oh my god, it works! Oh my god, it works! It's so good.
It's almost like you're trying to sort of make sure by listening to it over and over and over and over again. And also that comes down to trust. It's like trusting yourself. Because if like that's why the 2-hour ones can happen, is because you've done all that groundwork before. That when you get to a one that is really good, and you can literally It doesn't take much convincing. You're like, oh, I am convinced this is really good, so I can roll it out in 2 hours and not overthink it. That's really where that comes from, just from the hours of practice, the hours of knowing like what you love and what you don't, what works and what doesn't. It's So like, there's tunes like some of my favourite tunes that I've made in my music career have all come together very, very quickly, but they could never have existed but for the 10 other tracks that went in the bin beforehand.
Yes, of course, because you learn so much from those things, and even if you don't feel like you're learning because it's been it feels like an overwhelmingly negative process because you've been whatever you've worked on, you have actually learned something. You've learned to not do something that way, or you've learned to not use that kick and snare because they're garbage or whatever. You have taken something from it, even though the initial feeling is that you haven't. So it's like everything in life, and every experience builds towards something, even if you don't feel it at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think maybe I'll just ask you one more to wrap us up. Because I think I don't know whether I haven't actually listened back to many episodes of this podcast. I probably should, because I think it would maybe remind me of like the flow, and I'm really happy with them, and I'm gonna do more this year. That's my thinking. But I've always asked. I think I've asked every guest what success looks like to you. And yeah, okay. So. And that can be, like you said earlier, holistic, or it can be in different aspects of your life and career if you wanted.
I think, and this comes back to something I mentioned before, I feel like the thing that felt like success to me, or that I felt like content with my lot, was that I was in a position to have the confidence to release a record into like the Ski Mask EP in 2018, the first solo project I'd done. I just felt really good about doing that. And that felt like success in itself, because of all the work I'd done in the past to kind of build the label up to where it was, my DJ career. And it was just like, right, I'm in a place now where I feel really good about what I'm doing, and I kind of know how I want it to look and feel and sound. That felt like success. That feeling felt like success to me. That felt really good. More so than necessarily like playing to 15,000 people at Boomtown or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because those things are the things that I think a lot of music producers, I'm going to go slightly on the tangent here, but there's a point to it. I think a lot of people who make music would happily do nothing else than make music if they meant they could then learn a living from it and feel like they were progressing with it all the time. Would you think that's true?
Because I do it full time, I envy people who have something else that takes up some of their energy some of the time. Okay. And also I envy, envy's a strong word, but I wish there was more security that came with being an artist. What you said would be true for me if it was securing financially and long term.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what I mean. So if you were in an idealistic situation where you could just earn a good comfortable living from just getting in a room and creating every day, I think a lot of people would be quite happy with that, right?
That would look like success for me, not for the sense of making the money, but for the success is earning enough to sustain you being able to make more stuff.
Yeah, and you're in a position in your life where you can do something you really enjoy every day, and you're creating something. You know what I mean? That feeling is probably quite empowering, you know?
Yeah.
Because a lot of what this world that we're in, the kind of DJ, producer, label world, is all about, like, it's so focused on DJ shows that it's just it's just always you're always setting yourself up for a fall, because you're never going to be satiated by what you are offered, because unless you go on the sort of maddest trajectory, most of us in the underground world, you'll have a period where you'll kind of go along, you'll be doing a certain level of show, and then maybe you'll get some nice festival stuff, and then you go and do those, and then it'll be like the next year, you either repeat the cycle or maybe do slightly less profile shows, or you do higher profile shows. But the next year, unless you've written the biggest record of the year, you're probably going to end up doing the lower profile shows again, because there's just not the place for you because of what we do. Mm. And if you focus yourself on that kind of like bigger show thing, you're setting yourself up for fall. And the success isn't about how busy your diary is, or isn't about like the amount of people you play to, or how many likes the drop video that you put on Instagram got. But to a lot of people it is.
Yeah, I think ultimately though, if the sort of what's valued and what makes people lots of money and that sort of financial success is not stuff that I would consider to be art, it does happen. It like stuff that's I listen to and I go, fuck, that's really good. Does sometimes cross over and become widespread, become broadly successful in like wider circles. But most of the stuff where, you know, people are sort of lavishly living or earning, it's from sort of not stuff that I would consider long lasting or really making an impact, you know. So
I think actually, to answer your question, I think I've been pondering the answer sort of to have a kind of bit more succinct kind of answer to it. And I think for me, success is having some creative freedom to be able to, you know, realize some projects that I personally wanted to do. But ultimately it boils down to two things. One, I've turned a hobby into a business that enables me to sustain a lifestyle that I need and support a family and buy a home and have staff and press vinyl on loads of records and do ridiculous packaging for records and sell those records out and realize something that I started my first record label when I was 14. You know, it's absolutely, you know, I really, really love it. And to be able to do that as what I do, that's success. That's like, you know, it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. I mean, I'm so lucky. Not through lack of hard work. It's very, very hard work. We put a lot of energy into it, but we get out what you put in. And the other thing that I really love is the careers we've built. And that is success for me as well, seeing other people's success. Nice. You know, because that's, you know, seeing the people that we work with, you know, and that is so rewarding. And that's, you know, arguably one of the, it's such a beautiful thing to be involved in, you know. Yeah. To watch artists that you've seen with no shows and one tune out on, you know, that they self-released and they're not very confident, and then you watch them grow and you kind of, you just maybe hold their hand a little bit and just help them and encourage them, and then you get them on shows, and then you help them get an agent, and then you watch them do tours, and then they're suddenly like headliners. You're like, what? That's, you know, it's ultimately down to them and their music, and we don't sit here expecting thanks for it, but I suppose the thanks we get is that we get the privilege to work with them and put their music out. But it's such a wonderful process to be involved in. You know, some of my most fondest memories are just looking at, you know, someone like Martin Memphis when he started out. You know, he just done his thing on Near Signal. It was like, do a single with us. Everyone wanted to sign him, blah, blah, blah. He didn't really sign with anyone. He just decided to work with us a lot. And you watch him go from just being this kid who just like made this kind of in your face ping pong ball snare stuff, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? And then next thing he's a massive festival headliner, and that's just such a wonderful thing. That process is just so nice to watch, you know. You're watching Alex Enoy, like a kid from Russia who couldn't speak English when I first met him, really couldn't speak English. You know, getting him a visa so he can come here, ended up getting him a visa so he can live in the UK, watching him go from, you know, from this kid off in St. Petersburg just with his head down making tunes, drinking too much vodka, to then being, you know, like one of the, you know, alongside people like, arguably people like Break, Perez, arguably yourselves as Spectra Soul, you know, like really in that kind of core of like underground drum bass artists that are kind of widely accepted as like being in the DJ base, a lot of DJs. I think that's quite a rarity, you know what I mean? Like, Charlie's probably the best example, Charlie Break, because he's, you know, but I think Enoy fits in there as well. And just watching that happen, and, you know, everyone's always excited about when he puts a new record out and that kind of thing. It's just a joy. And then watching, you know, Lawrence move on from the Ivy Lab project and the incredible work he does, and just the quality of his music. It's just, yeah. It's just that's a gauge of success, is just seeing what other people can do. Yeah. And helping them do it is really, really rewarding.
But I think also it's like, from a purely, this is going to sound really cold, but it's like, it's vindication that your taste and the way that you work works, because you're able to identify early on people that have ability, and it's like a vindication of your taste and your ability to identify people that have talent.
Yeah, but a lot of it comes down to personality as well.
Yeah,
because there's been people that we started to work with who've been like, you're so talented, like I think you're going to be huge, and then some people don't have it in them. Some people don't like. It's a two-way street as well. Some people don't like working with us. It's not always like,
Yeah.
you know, they might not like the way we work.
Yeah.
We have a particular way we like to do things. You know, we are sometimes a bit, you know, particularly with new artists who don't really know the ropes, we can be a bit overbearing because we like things to be done in such a way, and some people don't like that. Some people just like a bit more of a relaxed way of doing things, or whatever. But it's all about the personalities at the end of the day, isn't it? Because people, the way you interact with people and the way that you can either let them get on with the way they want to do it, or you need to help them, and all these kind of things. It has so much effect on whether that person will actually see it through.
Yeah. But I think, I think like Kasra in 30 years will look back and you've probably had more successes than you've had failings on that, wouldn't you?
I think we've had a good run. Yeah, we've had like, it's been, well, the thing is as well, like for a long time, the label existed as just a label where we'd sign singles, you know, particularly when we were working with you guys, you know, when we did like Organizer and Alibi and things like that. It was just one-off singles with everyone. And we still don't do long-form deals with any of our artists. We don't sign anyone exclusively. I don't believe in it. And I think it's actually done us a lot of favours in the long run, because I just think it's completely counterproductive. For a multitude of reasons, which are probably quite boring, but we just rather just work with people in a way where, you know, we're here, we want you to be part of what we're doing, and if you're happy, you'll stay.
It's like a faith basis, isn't it? Like you're both repaying each other's faith.
It's a lot of handshake thing, yeah. But also, there's a real simple reason for it as well. A lot of artists write a lot of different music, and we might not want to release everything they want to make.
Yeah.
And I feel that, you know, if Eni suddenly made a balls to the wall neuro album and we didn't want to release it, does that record deserve to die just because we didn't want to release it? I don't think so. You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's quite an extreme example.
No, I know what you mean.
But yeah, we've had.
Go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like the list of artists we've had on the label, and then look at the roster on the website now, and it's just like that. You know, for me, I think one of the things I always set out, like 31 for me is like a benchmark label. When I first started buying tunes, it was 31. It was always the one. I'd walk into a record shop and I didn't care who it was or what it was. I just knew it would be good. Yeah. And that was a label that would put out a dystopian nightmare Ed Rush and Optical record one week, and then How You Make Me Feel by Marcus and ST Files. And, you know, it was just the opposite ends of the spectrum, but incredible bits of music. And that was always a thing that I wanted to, a place that I wanted Critical to be at. And that's like, you one week it could be this amazing vocal liquid thing by Halogenics. The next week it could be a hip hop record by Sam Binger. And then the week after that, it will be like a Memphis record, for example. Yeah. But you'll know it's going to be good. Yeah. And you might not get what you expected, but you'll know it'll be good. So, yeah.
It's a benchmark for quality, really. It's like, it's a stamp of approval sort of thing. So,
yeah. And I think so far we've been lucky enough to kind of position ourselves as being like a label that people want to work with. You know, I think our reputation is good for the reasons I said before. Like, we really care about what we do, you know, and people talk about that. And we want everything to be presented in such a way that everyone involved feels really proud of what they've done, you know? We don't just want to throw things out there and hope that people, you know, listen to it, whatever.
I think ultimately it cuts through when you believe in it, when everyone working on it believes in it, and it's considered, it cuts through without much like consider.
And the thing you said about like the process of putting out a release, and do you get bored? You know, you don't get bored because you treat everything with the care that it deserves, and you just hope that people feel the same way that you do about the music when it comes out. And thankfully, through the work we've done and the quality of the music we have, most people seem to feel the same way we do. And that's really, every time you do that, you kind of get energized.
Yeah.
To give you for a final example, like we find ourselves now with quite a lot of music to release, and we were really worried about being seen as a label that throws a lot of stuff out. because we're sometimes releasing 3 things a month. And we were working at one point, the QZB campaign, the Boo campaign, and your campaign, as in the Workforce campaign, 3 records coming out on vinyl, 3 EPs and 4 tracks as well. So that's a lot of music. We do our press in-house now. Brexit, COVID, all these other things going on. Do you know what I mean? It's like a lot. And our label manager was like, I think this might be a bit of a struggle. And I was like, well, we're the label, but people people don't look at it that way. It's like, if the music good? And we believe in everything we release, and particularly, look at those 3 releases, 3 very different releases, but 3 really incredibly high quality releases. And all 3 releases are pretty much sold out before they're out on vinyl. We've had really good press coverage on all of them. I mean, you might say differently as the artist who's done an awful job. But do you know what I mean? Like, we're juggling all these plates. But if you give everything the care and attention it deserves, and it's done the right way, and ultimately the music is really good, that's a record label, right? That's what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
nice.
Yeah.
I listened to this podcast the other day that speaks to this a little bit, where it was this guy who works with high class, like high-end sports stars, and he's like he's not specifically a sports psychologist, but he's into this sort of journaling, and I can't remember the name of this guy who was on a podcast, and he said every time that he would ask someone who's like a high-class performer to explain what they're what they're like at their best, or what they're like at their, what they're doing at their best times. And he was asking, like, I think he worked with like Djokovic and some other sort of Olympic stars and stuff, and no one would ever say, oh, I'm at my best when I'm winning the blah 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 100 meters or whatever. It would always come back to much simpler moral and sort of ideological stuff. So it would always come back to like, I'm at my best when I'm listening to my friend do this, or I'm, it's all just really simple stuff, even for people who are operating at a reasonably good level, or the highest level. It ultimately went like, it's why when every time I've seemed to have asked this question about what success looks like, it usually comes back to doing what I love, earning just about enough money to support my family. It's not like having 1 billion streams on Spotify and this, that, and the other.
There's no human connection to that shit.
No, and I think real artists don't give a shit about that sort of stuff. Really, no. There's certain people who are artists who have those kind of that kind of connection to fans, but they're like superstar people who, like I said earlier, are the ones that manage to cut through, and probably less so in our current era. That doesn't really seem to happen quite so much now. But I'm talking about people like David Bowie and people of that ilk.
Yeah,
sort of
I mean, I think that I completely agree with what you're saying. I do always have a kind of a bit of a bugbear with like people coming across a bit po-faced and not really accepting that, we all have different approaches to stuff. But you related to that earlier by saying, everyone has different backgrounds and have different reasons for doing things. But I genuinely think that, like for me personally, the things that really resonate are, the joy on an artist's face when they see their record, or, like seeing someone finally push a project over the line where it's done, or, for me, like I say, building careers, helping people achieve their dreams. To a lot of people, this is like the stuff they always wanted to do. And then in my own way, achieving what I've always wanted to do, which is like have my own business and doing something I love, but it's just the human connection is there. Like we don't, when you strive, because you could, like, I could strive to get 50,000 Instagram followers, but it's a completely joyless task. And the end result is completely joyless as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what is the point? But it's the same thing I was talking about with DJ work. It's like, you're never going to satiate yourself, because it's like, well, I've done this massive show now. I want the next massive show. It's like, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to call my agent and ask for a massive show. And your agent's going to go, okay, I'll try. And it's like, you didn't get that massive show. Sorry.
Yeah, and then what? And then what does that, like, what happens when you fail that? It's like, that's going to hurt.
I've got to write a banger. Well, you've written your banger and you still haven't got the massive show. God, I've written something I didn't believe in to get the massive show that isn't there. And now I hate myself. Like, you know? So whilst you can't be preachy about this stuff because everyone's different and everyone feels differently about it, it's like, as long as you're happy within yourself, then you'll have a good energy about what you're doing. And it's always, that's a lot of, I really believe in, like, something when I worked in the music industry, a woman who was my boss at the time at Rough Trade said to me that every project you work on has an energy around it, and you find that energy quite quickly. And if the project has a bad energy, it's never really going to work because you can't change it. And that's something that's always stuck with me, and I really, really believe in that. And that's why we kind of build this ring around what we do and only work with people who have that good energy.
Yeah.
It's like you're all going for the same thing. Like, you're always going to have problems. You're always going to have things where you butt heads, and there's going to be creative decisions where you don't agree and all this kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean it makes a bad energy. It just means you're going to have some discussions. But you very quickly learn what kind of way things are going to go. And we just make sure that we work with people where we're all fighting in the same, we're all looking the same way, want to achieve the same things. And that means the energy's good. So, I mean, this world we're in, whilst there is a lot of joy to be had, it's also incredibly hard work to keep your head above water. For a lot of us, you know, a lot of the time. So if it isn't fun and it isn't a joy to do, and you don't wake up in the morning wanting to do it, then you might be going fucking work in Tesco's.
Yeah, you're only here once. Yeah, and that speaks to what I was saying earlier as well about wishing I had something else that helped or like took some of my energy, because as soon as something that you love does become your sole source of income, it can and naturally does become more like work. And so I'm toying with that, you know, like trying to get that balance right and make sure that it never gets to that point. That's really
difficult as well then with that to make the right decisions as well.
Yeah, it starts to impact you. That's what I'm talking about. It starts to impact your decisions because you think about stuff through the prism of making money. Sorry, not through the prism of, but like with a view to make money as opposed to what is your creative vision. I guess my thing is thinking about how to best align those two things. So what do I love doing the best that still makes a return, and how much can I deviate from that line, you know, to keep myself sane and I still love what I do every day. So yeah,
I do always struggle with the kind of, like, you know, understanding there's such a balance between people doing stuff because they really believe in it and people doing stuff to make money, and how some people can look down on others who do things because they need to make money. And I think that it's really easy to be judgmental with that. But if you look down from your kind of ivory tower of doing things a certain way, because you know, we all do whatever we do because there's the return on it, because we need to survive.
Yeah, ultimately.
You know? So unless you live in a completely sustainable world and make music that you give away for free, you can't judge anyone on how they do their business. It's just up to the individual how they carry out what they do, and just you know.
I've sort of said that this year and last year, to be honest, about how I've tried to say that I've not always lived up to it. I'm people who know me behind the scenes know that I will take the piss out of anyone, but I've tried not to judge anyone's hustle this year or last year with regard to how they've decided they need to make their thing work through COVID, because everybody's going to have to do certain things to make their shit still meet, their ends still meet, sort of thing. So while I look at stuff and think, I wouldn't do stuff like that, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means I wouldn't do stuff like that. Like I've not done any live streams during COVID because it's just not for me. Basically, long story short, I'm not, but that isn't me saying that no one should do them. It's just not for me. So yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? I think maybe I was less like this a few years ago, maybe like 5-10 years ago, I would be more judgmental about everyone else, and that comes from an insecurity about the way I was doing it, because you're looking for everyone else to confirm that the way you do it is the right way, and the way I think about things artistically is the right way, and any other way of doing it isn't pure or whatever, which is bollocks. And that's like my old thinking, and now it's much more sort of flexible and malleable, but still with the odd thing of me just going, what the fuck is this person doing? Like, what is this all about?
I know. And you see that, and you also, because you judge it against your own views and feelings on stuff.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that I just started to do more and more was just give less of a shit about what other people do, and just really just focus. Like, it's such a, like the sort of thing you see on like business men's Instagrams. It's like, don't watch the competitors because your business is on fire, or I don't know, whatever, some crap they've written.
Yeah.
But if you're watching what other people are doing, you're not like taking care of your own stuff. So,
no. But also, negativity breeds more negativity. That sort of like energy, like it's like you're judging people with the same level of critique that you're giving yourself. Like, usually, I said this to people recently with regard to like Twitter specifically, and Twitter is like a hive of negativity and a hive of sort of like argumentative energy. That you'll find me on Twitter when I'm not feeling great. More often than not, if I'm heavily twittering, I'm probably not in the greatest headspace. But arguably, it's like a self-defeating cycle as well. So like, you go back there more because you feel that way, and you go there to serve that thing. And so, I guess it's like being more empathetic and understanding about the way other people like to do their stuff actually means that you can be more understanding and empathetic about the way that you do it, and also it breeds more of the same, so that people don't look at your stuff that way either. But that said, like I just said, I will still, take the piss out of the way I see certain things going down that I think are funny. So,
yeah. I mean, I always like the, I sort of refer this to my own experiences. You'll be like, or someone around you will say, your social numbers are a bit low. No. Why do you say that? Well, I think you should be on more than that. And then, I don't know if this has happened to you, but it's happened to me. And then you'll be like, okay, well, maybe I'll put a bit more effort into my Instagram. And then you do. And then you look at it, you're like, this is awful. What am I doing? Like, why? You can see people who are like working it, and that's fine because that's what they want to do, and that maybe that works for them. But when you suddenly see like he's got a manager now because they've just signed up to TikTok, or like they're posting videos of the tunes they've made and asking what ones they should release. It's like, that's fine. You want to get engagement with your Instagram page. That's all good. But everyone's going to have their different approaches to stuff. And ultimately, that stuff is only going to set you up for a fall, because you can't sustain, or I don't think it's right to sustain that level of like interaction, because at some point you have to go quiet. Surely it's a human nature to like not, I don't know. I mean, I sound like old man shouts at cloud, and I am an older person, but it's just, if that's the whole basis of what you're doing, then you're a different kind of artist, I think.
Yeah. That's the nicest way to square it, and it's the most charitable way to square it, I think. And
that's fine, and that's what some people want to be, and some people want to try and do everything. But I think if you like, I think that there's, speaking about an artist who's one of your good friends, you look at someone like Perez, and I just think he's such a good example of an artist who has maintained a really good level of everything in terms of good quality releases. You can see his diary's always good shows. He started a label that's a really strong brand already and has only been going 5 minutes. The people he collaborates with and his social media, it's just like, that's like, do shit, but do good shit if you're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just do something for the sake of it. You can see that his stuff is all done because there's a meaning to it. And I think he's such a good example.
It's just considered.
Yeah, it's considered. Everything should be considered. And he's such a good example of an artist who's done that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's particularly with the kind of music he makes as well, because let's not get it twisted. He's not Dimension. Do you know what I mean? He's writing underground tunes.
Yeah.
But through consistency and quality and a considered approach, you can do really well doing the shit you want to do. And the things I've always said is like, with the label, it's like, do you want to be Coldplay or Radiohead? And I know who I want to be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The Lighthouse family. That's me.
That's what they call you, Jack.
Yeah, the Lighthouse family of drum and bass. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I got off a lot of tangents there.
No, I think it's good. I think it's good. I want to.
Happy to revisit if you want to.
No, I think we've covered loads of stuff. Should be really good. And I want to thank you for being on and giving some time. And
I was really looking forward to it. I have to admit, I was quite pleased when you asked, because it was something I really like doing things like this, and I don't mean, particularly now, it's nice to talk about stuff, because my little boy isn't interested and the wife's sick of it. So also talk to someone who gets it, and we've known each other long enough to kind of know what we like, and it's good to chat, basically. I haven't spoken that long on the phone for a long time.
No,
actually.
and I think given the situation we're all in with COVID, it's really healthy to hear another person's voice, to shoot the shit and chat some ideas. And it's been good to have you on, and I want to thank you for the time. And
pleasure, mate. Pleasure.